welcome back, folks. You are listening to Financially Speaking. I'm your host, Tony Zambri, and it is my pleasure to be with you here today. Once again, I thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate it. I know there's a million other things you could be doing, and spending with me is very kind of you. Hopefully, what you hear today will give you some insights into markets, hopefully add a little bit of pragmatism, a voice of reason out there in the wilderness when there's so much hyperbole that is being thrown at you constantly. It's kind of difficult to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. But I am here to try and help in any way that I can. So when we cut to the break, we were talking about, things that have happened in the market over the last month, last week, things that came out today, some statistics from Bloomberg and Bespoke Investment Group. We do have some more things happening this week. Friday, the U.S. Department of Labor is going to release some additional jobs data. They released some yesterday and showed job openings had fallen to 7.6 million. This is down from 8.2% in November. You may recall that we had a peak of 12.2 million job openings in March of 2022 post-COVID. But we also noted in that report, layoffs have also dropped. So people being laid off by corporations dropped, as did the number of quote unquote quitters, people who quit their jobs. And I find this interesting, right? So employers don't want to fire people. Employees don't want to quit. Employers are finding it hard to get good people to replace them, and employees are finding it that, jobs aren't quite as easy to find that it was. And I'm wondering if this might be a nice balance. And I think the markets seem to think so, and the Fed seems to think so. Friday, we're going to get reports on new hires. Expectations, by the way, is that there will be 160,000 new hires, which is down sharply from 256,000 prior month. However, some of that's seasonal. It could be argued that 160,000 new jobs, it's certainly slowing job market, but still healthy. Unemployment, by the way, expected to stay at 4.1%. So could we be entering in this kind of Goldilocks-ish period when it comes to employment, hiring, and things like that? It bears watching. Early results, again, seem positive. Bears keeping an eye on. All right, let's move on to some interesting information that I came across while doing research for this show here today. According to Bespoke Investment Group, in the 42 years since 1953, when the S&P was up in January, the median rest of the year performance on the index was a gain of 13.5% with positive returns 86% of the time. So as you know, markets were up in January. So statistically, 86% of the time, that means the market will be up from here. Again, that 14% of the time it won't be, right? So we're going to be in one of those camps, but certainly overall nice to have a positive January. Again, according to Bespoke Investment Group, last Monday, January 27th, which by the way was the DeepSeek sell-off, right? Last Monday, the 27th, was the 11th time since 1993 that the S&P 500 SPDR ETF, SPY, opened down at least 1% from the prior close after it hit an all-time high in the prior session. So the previous Friday, SPY hit an all-time high. It opened down 1% on DeepSeek Monday. Also, perhaps positively, the S&P 500's median performance in the 6 months following the prior 10 occurrences was a gain of 7.7%, with gains 80% of the time. Speaking of DeepSeek sell-off on Monday, the 27th of January, that was the strongest single-day net breadth reading that the S&P had ever when it declined at least 1%. it was just the 9th time that the index was down by 1% and breadth was positive. So going back to breadth broadening. So we had a horrible day. I shouldn't say horrible. We had a very bad beginning on Monday, the 27th, ended up with a bad day, not a horrible day. Markets were down, but the majority of stocks were positive on that day. Once again, speaking to how much influence or control the Magnificent Seven has on the S&P 500. Generally speaking, if the Mag 7 has a good day, the S&P is going to be positive. If it has a bad day, the S&P is going to be down. The other 493 companies are important, but far less so than the Magnificent Seven. Okay, with the good news here comes not necessarily the bad news, but not great news. So February ranks as the second weakest month of the year, generally behind September. September is the only month that averages a negative return, negative 0.89%. February averages gains of only 0.12%, and this is over the last 50 years, with gains only 56% of the time. So, we had a great January. If February is not so awesome, we can live with it, as long as we don't see things kind of falling apart behind the scenes. According to Bloomberg, large cap growth has more than doubled the performance of small cap growth since the current bull market for U.S. stocks began on October 12th of 22. Large cap growth up 83% in aggregate versus small cap growth up 36%. That has resulted in a tremendous valuation gap as well. U.S. large cap growth is now trading at 6.7 times sales, and small cap growth only 1.8 times. So again, if you don't believe that we are going to be heading into a recession, you may want to look at your portfolio, talk to your advisor, and see if it makes sense to add positions in small cap. They carry more risk. They're far more volatile. But again, have that discussion, because certainly the performance in small cap has greatly trailed large cap on the growth side, especially in the U.S. According to S&P CoreLogic, this will come to no surprise as anybody who lives within listening range here. At 7.3%, the New York City metro area saw the largest year-over-year increase in home prices out of 20 cities tracked nationally. And again, S&P CoreLogic, S&P Case-Shiller, the Case-Shiller Index. New York City is also the only metro area that remains at all-time highs. As a comparison, home prices in San Francisco are in a 10.9% drawdown, which is the biggest of any other city. So, I don't know, for those who are looking for houses, I'm going to say hopefully things level out here and maybe come down a little bit. Again, a little bit selfish there. I've got two sons that are looking for homes, so we'll see. But New York Metro, still tough. According to the Wall Street Journal, since 1969, hedge funds have collectively earned $3.72 trillion in gains, but have kept nearly half of those gains in the form of fees, while only $1.9 trillion has been distributed to clients. So fees matter. And in the hedge fund world, that can especially be true. There's a lot of kind of mystique about it. But those 2%, those 2 and 20s, right? 2% yearly fees, 20% of profits can take their toll over time, especially if you're not in the right hedge fund. All right, music is playing, and that means the show is coming to an end, folks. I appreciate you spending this last half hour of your life with me. Once again, you have been listening to Financially Speaking. I am your host, Tony Zambri. Please go to my website with any questions, comments, or concerns, or if you want to contact me for any reason, zambrifinancial.lpl.com, ZAMBRIfinancial.lpl.com. Folks, until next week, please be well and God bless.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.